I've been having problems lately with my Durango surging during acceleration. Now it doesn't seem to happen if I accelerate very slowly, and it also doesn't seem to happen if I accelerate quickly. The only time it ever happens is if I'm accelerating moderately, and it only happens when I accelerate from either a stop or a very slow speed, something less than 5 miles per hour. I'm going to try to show you what it's doing here, and then we're going to maybe try to find some solutions and try to fix it. So let me see if it'll do it this time. Okay, here we go. There you go. See it? It surged initially. It may have looked like I stomped on the accelerator or something, but I didn't. I just accelerated moderately with even pressure, and for some reason it hesitates and then it surges, and then it's totally fine after that. And like I say, when I'm accelerating, if I'm going more than 5 miles an hour and then I accelerate, it seems to be just fine. But I'm going to research it just a little bit and see what the problem may be, and then if it's not too complicated, I'll probably try to fix it myself. So let's go take a look. This is a 2007 Dodge Durango with a 5.7 liter V8. We've been having some problems with acceleration surge, and I'm going to take a look at a few possible suspects. I've done some research on this particular problem in general, not specifically with this vehicle, and it looks like it could be a whole host of problems, anything from a faulty EGR valve to a dirty air filter, possibly a faulty PCV, possibly faulty or dirty intake air controllers, manifold air pressure sensor, throttle position sensor, and then even something more serious such as a torque converter or even a transmission problem. So we'll hope it's none of the latter. We're going to take a look at the intake system right now and then test it out and see if that fixes it. So air comes in through the air filter, which is housed in this container right here, goes through the intake air plenum into this box right here, which is also the intake air plenum, and then behind that sits the throttle body. So I'm going to look at the air cleaner and the sensors in between here and the throttle body, and we'll see if we can find something. The first thing I'm going to do is check the air cleaner and make sure it's not clogged or otherwise compromised, and it's housed inside this container right here. So it's held in by a few clips here. Here's one clip, and there's another clip back here, and there's a third one right here. And then let me disconnect this. This is a hose that leads to the crankcase vent. We'll just get that out of the way for now. And to make things easier, I'm going to unbolt or unscrew this connector right here, and separate this, and this should come right off here. Set that out of the way. This is the air cleaner. Let's take a look at it. This is the clean side. This is the dirty side. This particular air cleaner is not very dirty. Certainly not what's causing the problem anyway. But if this were clogged, black, if there was stuff lodged in it, you definitely want to change this. You should be changing this anyway, and see if that's the problem. But that's not the problem here. And since this isn't the problem, we're going to move on to removing the intake air plenum, which starts here, and see what else we can find. Now I'm going to remove the intake air plenum, at least part of it. This is really just dead space in here. It just routes the air from the air filter box to the air intake and throttle body. I am going to remove the other side of the crankcase vent, which is attached to the oil fill port. That just pulls right off of there. Let me get that out of the way. And then undo this screw. And this whole part should just come right off here. This is just stuck down in here. Pull that up. Pull that off. And there's nothing in here to check. This is just a way to route the air. There's a couple things I'll point out here. This is the intake air sensor. Very important. It tells the engine the temperature of the air and therefore what throttle position to go in, lots of different things. This right here is the manifold absolute pressure sensor, MAP sensor. Also very important. This is actually probably one of the most important inputs for the engine. You don't want to mess with these sensors. You want to check and make sure they're not dirty, but we also don't want to spray cleaner on them. We could possibly damage them. So I'm going to undo the electrical connector for the intake air sensor right now. There's a couple of gray tabs here. Just push down on those with a screwdriver and pull from the plug. Don't pull from the wires. Should come right off there. I'm going to remove this cable clip here just to get it out of the way. And now we should be able to remove this piece. It's held on by a couple of 10mm bolts. One's right here, one's right here. I think there's just two of them. And then this whole piece should just kind of come right out of there. It's I'll show you in a minute, but it's actually connected to the throttle body back there. I'm going to remove the rest of the intake air plenum. There are two bolts, one right here and one right here. We're going to remove those. These bolts don't actually come out of here, they'll stay attached to the plenum, but just make sure they're loose. And this whole unit should just pull back this way and kind of rotate out of the way. I changed the angle on you here a little bit so you can see it better, but this will just rotate right out of the way. And I will show you what's in here. Hopefully you can see this, but that intake air temperature sensor is in there. It's right here. We unhooked that already. And it looks very clean. I guess you can't tell by looking at it whether it's faulty or not, but you'd have an engine error code if it was faulty. Everything else in there looks pretty clean. It doesn't look very dirty. I didn't expect it to be dirty. But we'll put that out of the way for now. Now this is the throttle body, which is the part I suspected might be dirty. I'll give you a little better shot of that. This is the throttle body. It actually has an integrated idle air controller inside of it. There's no separate sensor idle air controller. It's all integrated into the throttle body. That's specific to this particular motor. I think the 4.7 and the other version of the motor have separate idle air controller motors or sensors. So we're going to take a look at the throttle body and clean it very carefully. We don't want to get carb cleaner or any other cleaner on some of the sensors, but let's take a look at this. And yeah, it's a little gummy. So what I'm going to do is take some carb cleaner, and don't spray it directly in here, but I'll spray some on a toothbrush. maybe a cloth, and just kind of wipe some of that free. There, as you can see, the half of the butterfly valve I've already cleaned is remarkably clean now. I'm going to continue cleaning the rest of it. Just make sure and look in there. There's no sensors. You don't want to bump any sensors. I don't see anything I can bump, but I'm just going to be very careful, clean out around the intake there, and then I'll probably put it back together and see if it still does it. I'll give you a better shot of it here. This is what it looks like up close. Okay, I got this thing cleaned up. One thing I'll mention, I shouldn't have to, but I will. Don't drop anything down here when you're cleaning it. If you do, you're going to have to rip off the whole intake air manifold, which is a much bigger job. I mean, this goes down into the cylinders, so that would be a no-no. But I'll let you look at this. I didn't clean back there very far, but I just got in there a little bit with a toothbrush and cleaned up the butterfly valve and the area around it. So I'm going to put it back together and see what happens. There's no trick to putting it back together. Everything's just the opposite of the way we took it apart. So we're going to start with this part of the air plenum. Put it back in place. And this part of the plenum, you're going to have to push it back on top of the seal of the throttle body. You'll feel it go in there, and that'll make these bolts line up. Should seat down there like that. Tighten up these bolts. We're going to hook the intake air temperature sensor back up, so just push this squarely on. It should snap. Make sure it's on there. We're going to put this cable clip back where it was. Then we install this part of the plenum. This part just goes down in a little grommet. Tighten this band clamp. And reassemble the air filter box. Helps to put this in first. And there's two tabs I need to get in here. There we go. And then the three clips, one here, one here, and one by the battery. That's on there solid. Retighten the band clamp here. And last but not least, don't forget to put the crankcase vent tube back on. This, I'm going to take it for a test drive and see if that helps. If not, we may pry deeper. Like I said, this is the manifold absolute pressure sensor right here. I didn't mess with that this time because that's actually down in the intake manifold, which is a much bigger job to get off. But if that was completely faulty, I don't think you could even drive it. You'd have an error code, and just to be clear, I wasn't having any error codes. Just was acting a little bit funny. So I will wrap this up and give you a report later.